All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank everybody for coming to the Planning and Zoning meeting on October 12th, 2016. First thing I'd like to do is pledge you allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Nuremberger, can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Mark Favazza,
Present.
Jennifer Hansen,
Here.
Michael Hart,
Here.
Rebecca Jacobs,
Here.
Clint Lewis,
Here.
Jeff Moore,
Here.
Hart Nelson,
Here.
John Nuremberg is here, John Renner,
Here.
Lisa Serling,
Here.
Tom Shipley.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. Nuremberger. Next thing on the list is old business. I do not see any. We'll move right to new business. We'll have approval of minutes first.
Yeah.
Anybody have any changes to the minutes? Adjustments? No. Being no changes, we'll approve them by affirmation. And then we'll skip to new business. We have a request for a conditional use permit for 8503 Manchester. Is the applicant present? Great. You mind stepping up to the podium and giving us a overview of the plan? Thank you.
Well, I currently own the AMCO at 8500 Manchester Road, and this building is across the street. It's literally across the street. And I've entered into an agreement with the owner of that building. He's wanting to leave, and so we've put together a contract for me to buy the building if we're able to move our business across the street over there. The building as it sits is perfect for our use. We're going to have very little changes whatsoever necessary for us to be able to just move across the street and carry on business the way that we are.
All right. And Lisa, there's some history to this property. Did you want to comment on the history?
Sure. Some of you who have served on the Planning and Zoning Commission for a while may remember this property at 8503 Manchester. It came before the Planning and Zoning Commission at that time for just site plan approval. And so as the petitioner Tim has said, the reason why it's here tonight needs a conditional use permit since it's an automotive related business. But as Tim said, there are no changes really proposed for the site plan. The only thing really that will change is that when we looked at the parking requirement for the new use for the automotive-related business, it did require more parking than the current owner and business needed. So there were a few more spaces that they needed to come up with. They were able, though, to figure out how to just reconfigure the existing asphalt surface, so there will be no more asphalt or anything that will be added to the property. So in that respect, it worked out. Again, because this is kind of relatively new in terms of just being before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the improvements already having been made to 8503 Manchester, the screening device that would be required between the commercial and residentially zoned property was already installed, and it's still in good shape. It's there. So again, very few changes, no exterior changes to the building are proposed. So, but because this is a conditional use permit, obviously the action can be three different actions tonight. Either you could just approve it as it's presented, you could deny the petition, or the third option is to approve the conditional use permit, but to go ahead and attach conditions to this. And so the staff report has included some conditions that we think would be worthy of the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider. So we can first enter into questions and then discussion, and then we can review those conditions if you would like.
Okay. Would a fourth option be to go to subcommittee as well to talk about it?
That is, yes, that's true. There doesn't have to be a decision made tonight. If you feel like maybe the site plan needs to be reviewed more thoroughly, that is the other option, is to send it to the site plan subcommittee of this commission.
Great, thank you. This time, I'll ask the commissioners if they want to address any questions. Mr. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, my question is when did the notices go out for the adjoining property owners?
They would have went out like a week ago Friday, so maybe they would have received them like a week ago Monday. There is no timetable for those first notices. There's actually 2 notices that would get sent in a case like this. The initial notice comes out and just explains when the Planning and Zoning Commission will hear the petition and kind of gives the general time frame, again, of the series of meetings that the commission will review it. And then a second notice goes out to those owners within 300 feet when the public hearing is actually scheduled with the Board of Aldermen. Now, that does have a time frame. Those notices have to go out at least 15 days prior to the public hearing.
Thank you.
Ms. Hanson?
Thank you. I suspect that the answer is it's been taken care of by the recommendations with the conditions, but with respect to the nature of the building being an auto business rather than, I guess, the building folks that were there before, are there any specific concerns or additional things that we need to consider about its location, even though it's the site plan won't change and we already have the screen between the residential area and the commercial area? Is there anything that has been contemplated or anything that is anticipated when an auto place moves next to a residential area that we haven't covered?
I think, yeah, some of the conditions will deal with that. Actually, one of the conditions would state the hours of operation. You wouldn't want it to go really into the evening. Those are actually, though, the current hours of Amoco, so that I think would be fine. The other, again, because they're right across the street, they have a track record, so to speak, in town. So we have not had any complaints about the business. And actually, because now this petition has moved forward, I've been back there a couple of times just to kind of look over the property conditions and see how things are kept. So I think it's been a well-kept business. The difference, though, is that now the neighbors to the rear of the property would be residentially zoned versus the light industrial. So that is a consideration.
With respect to the conditions that were placed on the recommendation, is the applicant aware of those and agreeable? Have you had the conversation?
Yeah, the report went out, but I guess, again, we did an email version and also a mailed version, so I can go over those, because then, yes, he wouldn't have been aware if he didn't receive the staff report. So is that all right then to go over them at this time?
Sure.
Chairman? Okay. So the first condition would be that no inoperative vehicles shall be permitted to be stored on the site. The second condition is parking of all vehicles shall be restricted to asphalt areas, and no parking shall be permitted on public right-of-way. The hours of operation would be limited to Monday through Friday, 8 to 5:30 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon, and closed on Sunday. The landscaping improvements, I would suggest that there should be some. The plan back in 2011 included a landscape plan, and it showed there should be 2 landscape planters along Manchester Road and 3 trees along Helen Avenue where there is an existing grass strip. So they aren't there, but I would think that that should go back and revisited and possibly be included as a condition. And then that the improvements be completed prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. And then the last one would be that the conditional use permit shall expire and be void upon any discernible sale of the business or assets. That's commonly done in the case of conditional use permits. So,
Okay. Oh, yeah, I don't hear anything there that I'd have any problem with.
I have a question on the no inoperable vehicles on the site. In the nature of the business, if my transmission goes out, I'd have it towed over there.
We
and
have-
it would be an inoperable vehicle.
Some transmission shops, like ours, they tow vehicles in, and then the people come in and are told, well, it's going to be $2,500 to have your vehicle fixed. And the people say, the car's not even worth that. And we normally tow cars in for free as part of the service when we rebuild transmissions. Well, sometimes people will say, oh, well, no thanks, it's not worth fixing. and they'll abandon the vehicle on the property so they don't have to pay the tow bill. And so it's something that we try to stay on top of, but I do know a few transmission shops. I own 3 here in St. Louis, and there's one by, up in Maryland Heights by my other shop where it's surrounded by vehicles, and that's one of the reasons, because they don't police their parking lot. For us, of course, we have a policy that's stated in our lobby. If you don't pick up your car within 72 hours after when the work is finished on it, we charge $25 a day storage fees. That helps keep our lots flowing and keep the cars turning and keep people from trying to leave cars there for an extended amount of time. And if they don't pick them up, then we just simply have them towed off. But we've been at our location at 8500 Manchester across the street for 5 years now. And one of the things our landlord likes about us is we keep the lots clear, we keep things picked up. The other tenants there, we've been a good partner to them, where the previous owners, there had been some conflicts and things.
I guess kind of the same question to Ms. Korkenmeier. So if we're putting a condition that they can't have inoperative vehicles on the site, we're sort of setting them up to, by the nature of the business.
I think probably the word would be stored. So, I mean, it is to assume that if it needs repair, it's gonna show up and it
Right.
could be inoperable.
Yeah.
But the idea is to not have them stored. So, we could, though, maybe help better explain that. If you have these business policies, which sound really good to me, maybe we want to also add that you couldn't store it on the property for more than a 72-hour period, or however that fits in with the business policy.
Yeah. I mean,
And it should be self-policed, and then also the city could police it,
Yeah,
so.
for us, of course, our goal is getting the cars in there. Probably at least, if I had to guess, I don't know, maybe 60 to 70% of the vehicles we work on are towed in. Because we're not a Firestone or a Dobbs that has a great volume of cars coming through there. About 70% of the work we do at this location is just all transmissions. On a busy day, we might have 5 customers come through our door. Most of the cars are towed in. We fix them, the customers come in, they pay us and they leave. So it's not a big volume of people coming through there. And we try to get the jobs done just as quickly as we can. Now, if there's an issue where a car comes in and we have a part that's very difficult to find, it may take a week for us to finally source the part. That would be the extent of a car sitting there.
If you look now, we don't have a single inoperable vehicle. We have probably 20 parking spaces there now.
This is Jerry, he's the manager.
And on your current location, is it like a high fence around the parking lot?
Our current location?
Where you are now?
Oh, no, we share the parking lot with the strip center. There's about 5 or 6 other businesses there, and everybody shares the parking. Now, we have designated spots that our people are supposed to park in, and we do our best to keep our customers out of any of the other spots. And just the way it's laid out, normally the customers always park closest to the door, and all the spots closest to the door are ours. So it just hasn't been an issue for us.
Thank you.
Any others, Ms. Shipley? No. Ms. Hanson?
In an effort, I suspect that if there's no community outrage or community comment that would make us think otherwise, that a motion might go today to pass with recommendations. And if we were to do, or pass with conditions, pardon, if we were to do that, I'd want to be really clear about the language we use about inoperable or stored or abandoned. So I guess my question for the applicant is, in your policies and procedures, whether AMCO or whether your location, how do you refer to the vehicles? Abandoned, stored, when you're saying inoperable? I just want to make sure that the verbiage makes sense for you, so that
Sure.
if you're self-reporting or you have turnover, somebody says, well, it's inoperable. I don't know, I just want to make sure it's specific and clear.
Yeah, I mean, definitely inoperable. A good amount of the cars that come to us are inoperable. They're towed in. An abandoned vehicle is something to where we told them, we said, hey, we're sorry, but to rebuild this transmission is going to be $2,000, and they're sitting there with the majority of the cars that we work on, cars that are, newer cars, they go to the dealership. They're either under warranty, or the people take them to the dealership to have them repairs. Our average car that we work on is probably anywhere from 1995 to 2005. And so some of these cars literally aren't worth fixing. What I don't appreciate is when the people find that out, and then rather than having their car towed somewhere else, they simply abandon it, so they don't have to pay me for the tow, and they don't have to. And in that case, then I just have to go through the necessary steps to have it removed, legally and properly from the premises.
What's the time frame for removing an abandoned car? Oh, sorry.
State your name, please.
Hi, my name is Jerry Gervais. To answer your question better, and this is how they do it in Wentzville, this is how they do it in Maryland Heights, this is how they do it in Overland. Unlicensed vehicles are considered in-ops and, abandoned vehicles. 99% of our vehicles are all licensed, and officers can stop by, run a plate any day. They're safe, inspected recently. They're up to date. So when you think about an inoperable vehicle or a vehicle that's going to be abandoned or sitting around, that's one that's not licensed. Most of our cars turn in 24 hours. So that's 3 business days of our normal 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. At any time, you probably won't see more than 2 to 3 cars in the parking lot. Tonight we left, there was 1 car in the parking lot. Most of you guys probably drive down Manchester anyway on your way home. You're welcome to stop by. We keep the building well lit. We don't want any vandalism. We keep all cameras on the outside of the building. Our inside is, immaculate. People come in all the time just to stop by to get an oil change and have a cup of coffee. It's not the same as what you see in Rock Hill. It's nothing the same. With used tires are all over the place. We don't store anything outside. We keep everything in our buildings, in our facilities. There's no oil spills. He keeps us on a tight leash. As he said, you guys are welcome to stop in. You'll see restrictions on the walls. Every call that gets called in for a tow is told them, you'll have 24 hours to make your decision to fix your vehicle. It's just one of those protocols.
In an effort to protect you guys, if we were to approve it with conditions, I'm simply trying to find out, let's say it's unlicensed and considered abandoned, there's a process by which you have to go through to get it out of your lot. I just want to make sure we allow for enough time or define it so that it doesn't shoot you guys in the foot after the fact.
And I think to help you, definitely, inoperable is not a word that we want to use. I think it's just a case, vehicles cannot be stored on the property. Is fine verbiage. We don't store anybody's vehicle. If it's been there more than 72 hours, we're making attempts to get it gone. The only reason it is because the people are probably waiting until payday to come in and pay for it and get rid of it or whatever. So, I'd like to help you the best I can with the proper words to use, but it's just vehicles cannot be stored on property. Vehicles cannot be left for an extended amount of time. You can determine the extended amount of time. We're kind of at the mercy of our customers. We try to work with them, and we try to help them out, and at the same time, I don't want to lose a customer because I'm trying to push their car off my lot. But there's a point to where you just have to say, I'm sorry, we've done everything we can for you, but we can't keep your car here any longer. You've got to come and get it. And if you don't, then I'm simply going to have it, removed. And then it's the impound lot like that.
Another good thing, too, that he forgets to tell you, anybody that owes us money, their cars are not left outside. It's just not a neighborhood.
That makes sense.
Yeah, if they owe us money, they're locked up in the building, so.
Well, and that's it. We do have the bays inside where you'll see there that we've got 14 parking spots, but the cars that we're working on are always inside. The inside's always full, and so you're looking at 4 more places inside that we'd have cars too. So a lot of times you could drive by our lot and we may have all the lifts full inside and a couple cars outside. It's just not like we fill up our parking lot.
And I don't want to belabor this, which I think I already have, but if we were to say something like no unlicensed or abandoned vehicles shall be permitted to be stored on the site after they've been deemed unlicensed or abandoned, something
Perfect,
like that.
absolutely.
Okay. All right.
I think your police department even has those little orange stickers that we just call them up and tell
Okay.
them, and they
Great.
come up and put the sticker on, and it's off to Terry's towing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good. Lisa,
She addressed.
you're good.
Jennifer.
John?
I had a couple of questions. One, do you have lines noted on the across from the handicap spot? Do you have any intention of building something up to block somebody driving through that area? Or are you just going to be doing lines?
Okay. To be honest with you, I hadn't really given it any thought.
Okay.
I didn't think it would be a problem. Let me look at the site plan.
I'm just thinking maybe you could do a curve of some sort, maybe with some planting of some sort that would be a little bit more attractive to the street or whatever as far as the block it, so somebody can't drive through, straight through the parking lot or the handicap spot or whatever. That's,
Do you mean driving this way, like up and down Manchester through that?
no,
spot?
if somebody drove in and went into the handicap spot, they can drive straight through and they could hit somebody that's parked in the other spot.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you, an easy fix for that, and I'd be happy to do it, is back where the bay doors are on the garage, on each end, we have the concrete the round poles that are metal, full of concrete about this high. We could easily put,
A bollard.
yeah, we could easily put a couple of those there. That would probably be a good idea. At the same time, I mean, there is, in front of the other spaces there in front of the buildings, we have
You had the wall that, but there's two spaces that you could drive through or
oh,
whatever.
yeah,
that-
no, I tell you what, I would love to do that, that would be good for me, to where if somebody did, at least they damaged their car, they didn't. It's no big deal if one of my customers does something dumb and
Yeah.
damages their own car, but when they hit somebody else's car, then all of a sudden, I'm put in the middle of it, So no, we'd be happy to agree to do that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think something should be done along that line. And I know you probably don't have control, you're gonna own this building, correct?
Uh-huh.
You're buying this building.
Right.
Do you know what the plans are? You're not gonna continue to operate on the other side, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you're gonna move from that side over to this side. I'm just concerned about the amount of automobile type issues that we have along Manchester Road. It's like everybody has an automotive shop. If you go down, I think there's 10, something like that, different types of service and that sort of thing. But so you don't know any plans for what they would do for that side, because I'm sure that would be automotive as well or whatever. So you're just gonna leave that lease and then that new owner would have to find somebody else to go in there, correct?
Correct. I mean, to be quite candid with you, I'm sure that they'll try to lease it out to someone else to put in a Midas, it's not big enough for Dobbs, but I'm sure they'll try to get someone else to put in another automotive business there.
Yeah. That's one of the concerns I had, just we're adding another automotive location. I know you've been a good corporate citizen for a long time, and that says a lot, making sure that it's going to be, but that really doesn't have anything to do with your site plan. I just was curious. I appreciate you answering.
Yeah. And just so you know, the reason I'm doing this is simply I've been paying rent there for 5 years. I like Brentwood. Our store's doing well there. I'm excited about the future of that store. And it's just a case to where it makes sense to me to buy a building. My 5-year lease came up. I've renewed the lease, but I renewed the lease with a 6-month option. And I told the landlord, I was quite upfront. I said, look, I'm going to get my own building. I've given you enough in rent over the last 5 years to have purchased a building. And so I told her, I said, I'm just going to try to find a building in Brentwood, and when I do, then I'll be giving notice, and that's why we negotiated the lease with a 6-month out. to give both of us time.
Okay, and then as far as, I'm sure you're gonna replace a sign with something that Amico is gonna be lit, is gonna be anything that has to do with any, as far as nighttime and that sort of thing, or?
Yeah, my plan is, I currently have a nice sized pole sign in front of this store, and I'm just planning on bringing that across the
You
street.
can't, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Our code would not allow you to do a pole sign anymore, but you can do one
Oh.
in that bed or whatever, that
Yeah,
location.
here's what we were over there looking at it today. The sign that's on the pole, we can take it off and put it on the side of the building. That's one of the thoughts. And of course, we're not gonna do anything against your signage restrictions.
Right.
But they currently have a sign in a planter's box. And I'm
Right.
planning on using that one, and just redoing that so that'll say AMCO. Now, unlike the building I'm in, this building has two sides, one facing Manchester and one facing another road. And so I'll make use of the signage that I have. But however I do it, it'll be, approved by you guys first. I mean, we're not gonna do anything that you don't want us to. And the building currently has an awning, and we'll be putting a new awning on it and painting the building, and it'll look really sharp when we're done.
What, as far as that typically would be something that you would be, if you're gonna do that, we would wanna have some input on what the colors are planning on doing, what type of materials, and, where are you gonna, what color is your awning gonna be? I hate yellow, but.
Yeah, what we have to, AMCO, the franchise that we're a part of, has been in business over 50 years. They have their corporate requirements, and we can provide you with a schematic of, what the building will look like when we're finished. And basically, it would be most likely painting the building white, putting up a blue or a red awning, and then having a border color. Similar to what we did when we moved into this building, we put, we changed the fascia and made it to adhere to AMCO standards. Because it was a brick building, naturally, we didn't paint it. But I have to get their approval. If the city says, yeah, this is fine, you can do this, then I have to submit to AMCO a relocation request. And as part of that, agreement, they're gonna say, well, okay, we approve your relocating, but you're gonna have to bring this building up to AMCO standards. And it will have to be done to meet their corporate requirements.
So just to clarify on that then, so again, we've talked a little bit about this. If because of still some of the company requirements, for instance, if you're going to be changing the exterior building materials, or again, changing altering the building, then that would require site plan architectural elevation review. If it's going to be just to go ahead and put a fresh coat of paint on there and just replace the awning with the like awning, that would not
Yeah.
come back to.
That's what I
commission.
anticipate
So
right
that's
now
what we had
is,
talked about.
well, we definitely will replace the awning with a new awning that would have our name on it, of course. And then what I'm thinking is it's currently a tan brick building, and that we would probably paint it most likely white, and there wouldn't be, and then put our signs on it, and that would probably be pretty much the extent of it.
Well, one of the options we normally do with the site plan, we would typically go 2 weeks from now and have a meeting or whatever, that would it be possible for you to have like some drawings of what you're planning on doing?
Absolutely.
At that meeting, if we were to decide to go there, I just think there's more that you're talking about doing to the site. You're really not doing anything major, you're just updating it and that sort of thing. So, but I would really like to see some of that details or whatever, and then that would be in writing for the staff to know what's gonna happen. And I'm not looking for maybe just a location of the sign where you're planning on putting in or whatever, and it's like, if you have a picture of what's going to go, that would be helpful, I think. I'm just, I'm not sure we're going this way, but I'm thinking there's more that you're planning on doing that really we were prepared to look at or to vote on tonight, so.
And just so you know, I mean, I got a approval to put additional signage on the building that I have. This was 3 or 4 years ago, and we went through the whole process of bringing it to the city and saying this is what we'd like to do. And you know, I think we worked very well with you guys in saying, look, I'm going to do it. Believe me, it's easiest for me to do it exactly the way that you want.
Right.
It really is, and I just don't think there'll be any problem. And AMCO is not, they're flexible. If I go to them and I say, we're gonna leave the building alone, all we're gonna do is change the awning so it has our name on it instead of theirs, they're gonna say, that's fine, it's a nice looking building, you're okay. We'd like for you to do our corporate colors and everything, but it's not something that's ironclad. They've already seen the building.
That might be just saying exactly what those colors are and what you're planning on doing, where, and that sort of thing. That's.
Oh, I'll be happy to work you up a schematic to where this is what we're looking to do totally. I have no problem with that at all.
So that's all I had, Mr. Shamman. I think, my point is, I think we should go to site plan, but that's up to the whole commission to settle.
May I?
Understand? Commissioner?
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to say, I was on Board of Adjustment when we worked with you a few years ago about I think it was the pole sign, because the issue of where the other pole sign was with the strip mall was close, so we approved, you all to have that pole sign, but it is important to know you can't just take the pole and put it across the street, but I think they addressed that, so.
Yeah.
You understand that, but we worked together and got it approved, and it worked out well.
Yeah, believe me, I'm not going to do anything before you guys already know about it and have approved it. It just makes it so much easier for me. I don't want to go to the expense of doing something only to be told, well, take that down or that's wrong. We'll do it however you guys want.
Anybody else from there?
I have a question on the staff report, so this isn't directed at the petitioner. So, just for my learning and so I better understand, so there were a couple of pages from the existing comprehensive plan from 2006. We're starting the process to rework our comprehensive plan, but I think the pages that were cited in the staff report probably will still be will make the same point in the 2020 plan, and that is this corridor along Manchester Road isn't as modern and isn't as upscale as other commercial sections of Brentwood. And in page 19, we talk about our goal is to improve the aesthetics of commercial and light manufacturing properties along arterials. So it sounds like we have a petitioner who would work with us to try to improve the property. And part of my question is that in the purview of us, or is that something more for the Architectural Review Board? Because the thing that seems to be a little bit antithetical is on page 4 of 6 of the report. It says, number 3, will it affect the character of the neighborhood? And the answer is the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area. And I agree, it's compatible because there's a bunch of automotive repair shops in the area. So how can we sort of address a comprehensive plan to dress this up? And maybe if your place looks a lot better, your neighbors will start to improve theirs, and it'll be like the...
I tell you what, though, if the next time you drive by this building, if you take a look at it, it really looks a lot nicer than the buildings around it. I mean, when these people came in, that's what they do for a living. Their company is Exterior Solutions, and they're a construction company that works on the exterior of buildings. And so, I mean, I think the building itself looks very nice. It's painted a nice neutral color, has a nice awning. I'm all for whatever you guys want me to do to spruce it up. Definitely, I'll work with you in any way. But I think it's already a pretty nice looking building.
Relative to the neighbors.
Well, that's what I say.
Looks great.
The one next door is currently yellow and green and, but I think that they're in the process of remodeling that too. But no, the better it looks, the better it is for us.
So here again, to try to help summarize this, so it will not go to the Architectural Review Board. They only look at residential construction, so not commercial. The commercial does come before this Planning and Zoning Commission if, again, there's changes to the types of materials that they're using, they're changing the facade, they're adding, a parapet, something changes about the building. A paint choice or even just repainting a building does not come before this board. And again, if the awning is just going to be changed out with the same awning, it would not. Now, that being said, this is a conditional use permit. So if you would decide that you'd want to add a condition, making the architectural elevation be a part of this, you could require that as a condition of the CUP. So you could address it that way.
And Tom, it is our, it's under our privilege to make this property as best it can on the change of use. So,
Mr. Chair, yes. Mr. Monteleone, I just wanted to congratulate you on the fact that you are taking ownership in Brentwood. I appreciate the fact that we have business owners like yourself who are wanting to stay here and to grow your business here. Pending public comment, I would be willing to move forward tonight. I understand Mr. Nurnberger's concerns. I agree with him. I want this property to look as nice as possible, but I think we have a demonstration of a business owner here who's going to do that. And I think that we want to, I would like to demonstrate that trust back to you as well, understanding our obligation here. So pending public comment, I'd be prepared to vote tonight on this.
all right, thank you. Any other commissioners with questions or comments?
Just one comment about the whole plan as far as the neighborhood. There's nobody that would say they want another automotive shop in Brentwood along Manchester Road. That's for sure not in the plan. So, but we have an owner that wants to put in one. So it's like somebody that's been proven to be a good resident and that sort of thing. So I'm not against it necessarily. I'm just saying it's not something that we put in the comp plan to have, but you're not going to get location. You're going to get a lot of other locations in that area of Brentwood. You do know about the flooding, correct?
Well, I tell you, it's because of the flood, I'm able to buy the building.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I tried to buy the building before, and he said no, and then he came back after he got flooded and said, are you still interested? And we got flooded too. The difference is, we squeegeed it out, and we were about 4 hours down, and we were back open for business. Unfortunately, where we'd be putting our lifts in this building, he uses it to store all of his building supplies and materials, and that all got burnt by the flood. We're in a position to where with this property, we've already got plans to waterproof it the best that we can. We're not going into this hoping it doesn't flood again. We're going in anticipating it. And just like before, we have lifts. We can lift things up, off the ground. When we go home, we can have the cars in the air. We can have equipment stored in places to where a foot or two of water just isn't going to slow us down.
thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Consistent with Commissioner Shipley's comments and the neighborhood and the aesthetics, I think this should go to site plan review. And the reason is it gives us an opportunity perhaps to drive down from Brentwood Boulevard, take in the nice light fixtures, realizing that we can't carry it down as far as this property. But it occurred to me that the yellow and green building has a newly installed landscape planter out in front of it. What if we match it? Just try to do something that shows some consistency, some conformity between the properties. So with that said, I would take the position that this should go to site plan.
Well said. Thank you. Any other questions?
Oh, I mean, I'll be happy to work with you guys in any way. Unfortunately, the building that you're talking about with the big planter out front, we were looking at it earlier, and I don't have room on my lot for something like that. It would take up parking that I don't have. Now, it does have a planter box in the corner of the parking lot where the sign is, that is made out of the same type of material as that box. So it matches that a little bit, but any recommendations you guys have to increase the aesthetics of the property without cutting down my parking, I'm all for.
And allow me to say, I haven't had the opportunity to do what just occurred to me, which is look at the two buildings and try to create some consistency. And if that planter's too big, then yeah, we scale yours down in size, but just, I wouldn't recommend the yellow and green color scheme, though.
All right, thank you. This time we'll take a public comment. If anybody from the audience would like to step up, state your name, and you have 3 minutes to let us know what you think.
Louise Charbonneau, 8833 Madge. I just wanted to speak because I wanted to say your name, Monteleone. I like it very much. I understand Mr. Nurnberger's concern with regard to what's going to happen when the new tenant comes in across the street because we're going to be into more automotive, but this gentleman seems amenable. He seems delighted to be able to stay in Brentwood. He understands the risks he faces with regard to the high water. But just to be clear, going to Ms. Hanson's question, 5 cars a day, I don't know with regard to a transmission business what type of noise is generated, or are there any smells that are generated because of having the residential behind you now? And electric wrenches or?
No, I tell you, we're currently right next to.
Sir, you're going to step up to the mic,
I'm
sorry.
That's my concern.
Oh, yeah, no, we don't, those wrenches and things you're talking about, that's normally associated with tire shops. We don't do tires, we don't do alignments. Mostly what happens is the car's put up on a lift and a guy with a ratchet and hand tools is pulling the transmission and putting it back in. All fluids are contained, I mean, that's heavily regulated, how we have to treat those. So there's
So there's no
really,
sensor, and like they're having that
No.
trouble over in Old Webster with that guy that does the auto body and the painting, and the people are tired.
oh, no, see,
You know.
now you're talking something different, you're talking about painting. And once again, that's very heavily regulated, where they're spraying aerosol and paints
But your
and things.
business does not generate those?
None
That's all I
whatsoever.
needed.
And we also sit right now next to, there's a bar there, there's meals
The resell
on
it shop.
wheels or whatever, there's the little dog shop, and all the people that are next door to us, some of them came over and said, hey, are you guys moving? What's going on? I mean, we've got good relationships with our neighbors.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else from the audience like to comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Any thoughts?
I would really like to see this go to site plan, but that's up to, I think it should be reviewed, and, because there's a lot of things that he's talking about changing. He's willing to do it, and he's willing to make sure it is doing right. I don't want to leave it all up to the staff to be able to say what's going to happen with the site. So I just think it would be better to have it, and I'm willing to be there 2 weeks from now.
All right.
Well, I would say, try to go site plan and let him talk to corporate, get their recommendations from, his
Yeah.
corporate, so they'll know what changes that they would recommend or would ask for him.
Okay. So should we go to subcommittee on October 26th?
Do we typically vote on a subcommittee move or no?
No,
Wanna make
it's- just make sure that everybody can make it.
I'll just put my 2 cents in so it's heard. I think that I understand the need and the desire to want to comply with what our comprehensive plan is. But I think when somebody comes to us with site development, for a site development approval and for a conditional use permit, we need to be very careful about how we balance a very willing and able business person who wants to buy and continue his business in our community with our need to either micromanage or put our desires ahead of his. I think what he's asking to do is simply put paint on, change the name on the awning. And so my concern, I mean, certainly we'll go to site plan, and if he's agreeable, then I think there's not an argument there. But I think going forward, until or unless we maybe separately discuss how we're going to handle applicants coming and how much we're going to grab onto those applicants, it might be worth letting this gentleman's application be approved with, the way Hart said, extending trust, since he wants to be a partner with our city and do what would be best for our city and in compliance or in appreciation of the comprehensive plan. With that said, if we go to site plan, it is what it is, but I think we need to, going forward, have some sort of cohesive idea of how we want to treat our applicants with respect to site plan and our input level into paint color, and other little things that we would want to happen, planters, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Just add one on, that to me is why the conditional use hearing happens or whatever, because they're changing a use of the building. So to me, it's gonna be an automotive shop instead of an interior design. And that changes things because there's a lot of things to look at. They have to add car parking, they have to do other things or whatever. So I think it's a little bit different when it comes to us as a conditional use hearing that versus a whole site plan and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I just think in this case, he's made it clear that he doesn't want to go beyond painting and changing the awning. And so for me, going forward, I think we need to think about how our applicants appear to us, what, if anything, will we require of them, and, whether we need to go to site plan or we can just trust the applicants to adhere to what they proposed, and, with the recommendation from the staff saying it should be approved with conditions. I take the staff's opinion very seriously. I defer to them because they have education and experience that I don't. And so when they indicate that something should be approved with conditions, and they don't indicate that it's a good property or petition or application to go to site plan, I tend to agree with them unless I'm hearing something with the community or something that maybe didn't occur to us at the time. So I'm not going to make a motion if everybody wants to go to site plan. I'm not going to make a motion. Should I, just to get it out of the way and see if it doesn't pass, and then we can try site plan?
Yeah.
All right,
If you like.
I'll make a motion then. I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the additional conditions 1 through 6, as indicated on page 5 to 6 of the staff report. And with respect to condition number 1, changing the language from no inoperative vehicles shall be permitted to be stored on the site to language just generally stating.
About unlicensed or abandoned?
Or abandoned. So maybe that no vehicles deemed unlicensed or abandoned shall be permitted to be stored on the site. And if somebody wants to second that, great. If not, I'll see you all at site
I
plan.
second that motion.
You got a second, Jeff?
I'm
Say
sorry, I
discussion.
did not look. Who seconded?
I did.
Please? Okay.
there's a discussion now.
Go ahead.
If we voted on tonight, then it goes to the Board of Aldermen. If it gets voted down tonight, it goes to the Board of Aldermen with a recommendation, one or the other. If we fail it, it goes, so to me, there was motion to go to site plan. Now we've got it up for vote, because I can't vote for it right now. I'm not against this property, but I can't vote for it right now.
I think that's legitimate, and if everybody else says let's not vote for it, then I will happily go to site plan. I'm just raising the larger point that going forward in
But
site.
we have a motion and second, so we have to table it. You would have to table it now to go to site plan.
So if it fails, we can't,
No, it
nobody
goes to
can
the
raise
Board of
a.
Aldermen.
It'll go to the board.
Yeah, as
That's a good
a
point.
negative recommendation.
Yeah,
It doesn't go to site plan if we vote it down. We have to say it's going to go to site plan tonight before we have the motion. So you would have to,
why don't I do this? May I ask the applicant whether he
Right.
would?
Yeah, I was going to, Mr. Montaloni, do you, is 2 weeks going to set you back in any way?
Okay, perfect.
So I probably, I don't
Then I'll
think-
table the motion
because
and we
if
can take it to site plan.
Yeah,
I
we
certainly don't want to ruin your,
Right.
your,
We don't
plan.
want, yeah, I would say we don't want to discourage the business owner.
Of course, of course, I'm not gonna, yeah,
Yeah,
We
my
need
only.
more business owners like this, John.
agreed.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. I just need to advance it on a somewhat, timely fashion, because
You got 6 months with your lease.
oh, it's not that, it's just that I've got an owner that's wanting to get out of that building as quickly as possible, because every time it rains, he's worried. He just moved back in there. And so he's like, yeah, one of the promises I made to him is I'll do my best to do everything I can to make this happen as quickly as possible, but 2 weeks is not a big deal, so.
And would you be,
I'll table my motion then.
okay, the motion's tabled?
I mean, I'd much rather wait 2 weeks and get it approved than do something that could.
I think,
It would be a withdrawal of the motion, I
Excuse me?
think.
Withdraw then?
Yes.
Yeah, then I will withdraw my motion. And may I also ask, though, that maybe at site plan committee, if enough people are there, and we've got the time, potentially we can address some sort of cohesive strategy going forward in terms of what the conditional use permit comes up, what we intend to have an applicant do versus a site plan, just get some sense of what we want to do in light of the comprehensive plan and the 2020 plan coming out.
So we are withdrawing the motion.
Motion
Can
withdrawn.
can I go ahead, though, and make one
Oh.
more point?
Yes.
If this goes to site plan committee, you couldn't then just table this motion to site plan. It's going to have to come back to the full planning and zoning commission. So I don't want the applicant to think that it's just 2 weeks and then he's going to get this vote and recommendation. But rather, it's going to have to come back to the November, sorry, I don't have the date.
So
think
it's
it's the
it's
13th.
basically a month, because it'll go to site plan and then it'll come back to
The
P&Z.
way the code is written, right? And then if it takes 2 readings by the Board of Aldermen, then it would, and we had this discussion too, if it goes to site plan, then it does go over the month, because then it would be addressed at the first and third December meetings for the Board of Aldermen. So I just,
My only problem with that is I currently have a contract contingent upon a November 30th closing.
Oh.
And so it puts me in a position to where,
Yeah. Can we ask for a first and second reading the same night? I would think that would probably be okay.
we could, right? Part of your motion could be then, in your recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, to also ask them to consider to do the first and second reading. So that still would be, though, the December, the first Monday in December.
Is there anything in the rules that would allow us to poll before we vote, or is that not a, we just go for it?
Why couldn't we,
Alright.
in discussion, couldn't that,
You can.
be
You can
fleshed out in
indicate,
discussion?
yes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I would be agreeable to still passing tonight with the conditions I stated, in an effort to make sure that he can meet his closing and that we don't appear back. Mr. Shipley?
My comment would be, I would also,
Okay.
as you stated.
Mr. Ritter? Do you have any comments?
I'd be for that, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I'd be for, as you stated.
Put your motion in.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and renew my motion. This is the,
Second.
Commissioner Damien's going to come back, Chairperson Damien, and say, I'll never leave again, because Ms. Hanson wouldn't be quiet. So I'll renew my motion.
and if it would help too, I would be opposed to having language put in there as well as no, to state nothing else would be done with the exterior of the property before getting approval from the city, other than just possibly repainting it and the awning. I mean, that's fine. I want to work with you guys every way that I can, and I don't mind getting permission. It doesn't hurt my feelings to have to come and ask to do something.
So, I guess what you could do potentially is still make a motion, take action tonight with your recommendation. You could include a condition, though, that you still want it to go to site plan for consultation with the petitioner or something.
Right.
And then, try to get an outcome there, but again, it's not gonna then affect the motion. I mean, you couldn't then at the site plan actually dictate this is how it's gonna be, because your motion has already been acted upon.
Right, it would be more of a courtesy meeting for consultation, is that correct?
Mr. Manaloni, would you be open to something like that, where we take a vote here this evening and then have a meeting on the 26th to discuss some of the details?
Sure. I'm going to be agreeable to whatever you guys think is best.
Good. All right. All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion.
And second?
Mr. Nelson, second. Jennifer's motion. John?
Mark Bavaza,
I'm for it.
Jennifer Hansen,
Yes.
Michael Hart,
Yes.
Rebecca Jacobs,
Yes.
Clint Lewis,
Yes.
Jeff Moore,
No.
Art Nelson,
Yes.
John Nermer, as you know, John Ritter,
Yes.
Leif Swirling,
Yes.
Tom Shipley.
Yes.
Motion passes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good work, everyone. Item 6, Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee report. Meyer, anything else?
Just, I guess this is as good a place as any on the agenda, is just to remind everyone that the consultants are in town this week, Housel and Levine. So tomorrow, along with the evening community workshop that's scheduled from 7 to 8:30 over at the Brentwood Recreation Complex, hope you all can make it. But we have 2/3 of the day filled with various interviews with stakeholders and so forth that myself and the consultants will be meeting with. So we'll keep them pretty busy while they're in town. And then Friday morning, there will also be the second public workshop, the business workshop. That's a morning format from 7:30 a.m. to 9. That will also be at the Brentwood Recreation Complex. So I hope if your schedule allows that maybe you can make it to one or both meetings. Other than that, what will take place, this will be a good checking in point with the committee after we have these first 2 workshops. I think, and again, with our other meetings that are planned for the duration of those 2 days, I think we'll be able to really start reflecting of what information's been gathered, if people are starting to respond to the surveys. The surveys now have been on that Brentwood 2020 link now for probably about a month. So this will be a good checking in point, and I would expect the CPAC, the committee to meet shortly thereafter, within probably the next 20 to 30 days, so.
Good. Hopefully some of the commission members will be at one or both of those meetings. Number 7, Aldermanic report. Anything? No comment? Thank you. City planners report.
Just a couple of announcements here. I do have, and we passed out some of these codified zoning codes, which is chapter 400 in the municipal code, and we gave some of those out at the August meeting, but I know we had lower attendance at that August meeting. So for those of you who have not picked that up, we have copies here. This is a codified edition for the entire zoning, signage, and subdivision chapters. And it's important for you guys to have the codified one, because now when we do any kind of supplements or updates, it'll all be coordinated. So then when you get the supplement sheets, you can just slip them into these books. I know some people would just prefer to, use what's on the city's website, but if you're the type of person that still likes to have, the hard copy version, please feel free to pick one of these up. And the only other announcement I guess I wanted to make, I wanted to see for sure if everyone on this commission received this letter. It was dated September 30th from the city administrator. And it discusses the new city policy for not only the elected officials and a few select employees as myself. There is a request now under this policy that in addition to the Missouri forms that you fill out as being appointed to this board, there's a Missouri state law about filling out the ethics requirement. So some of you might be kind of familiar with that form. But in addition to that, an ordinance was passed by the Board of Aldermen that also requested that members on this commission, the Board of Adjustment, and the Architectural Review Board would also be subject to filling out this disclosure form, which was also sent to you. And what it's asking for is for all members of those 3 boards, in addition to complete this, it's asking for if you would have any either proprietary interest or even a leasehold interest in both real estate and businesses within the city limits of Brentwood. This would include your interest as well as family members. So if there's any question about filling this out, just feel free to call myself or BOLA or even the human resources person I think could help you as well. So I don't know if there was any questions about that. And the reasoning behind it is the reason why the elected officials decided to include those 3 boards that I mentioned is because, just as you saw tonight, you will be reviewing cases that will involve real estate. And again, it goes back to just being very transparent and making sure that the decisions that you make, that there may not be some other interest that you have in the petition or the actual real estate in question. So it's just, again, to just kind of help keep things very transparent within the community. So if you have any, questions about the policy or even how to fill out the paperwork, just let us know. I do think they belong back into the city administrator's office, though, 30 days from September 6th. So around November 6th is actually when we were wanting these back. So if you could comply with that, we'd appreciate it. And again, any questions, just see Bola or myself. So, did everyone get that paperwork?
When did
Everyone's
they
from-
go out?
It was, the letter was dated September 30th. I think the ordinance was maybe approved at the beginning of September. And then the letter in addition to the forms that you needed to fill out. So, if you didn't receive a copy, just let me know and we can resend that to you. And I think that was all that I had, so.
All right, that was good, thank you. Number 9, October site plan review subcommittee appointments. Lisa, could you fill us in on that? I'm not aware of that one.
Nothing.
Nothing?
You're not doing the site plan.
Oh, I thought it was. this is
Well, we're
appoint-
doing
This is
it.
appointments.
Hers
That-
was
that's-
What's
one,
going
though.
on there?
That's,
Nothing?
people raise their hand and say, I'm
All right.
going to be there.
Good. No appointments then. Rationale for the Board of Aldermen, you'll take care of. Any other business?
I would also report that at the last meeting, you addressed the request for the amended conditional use permit for the coffee kiosk there at 2944 South Brentwood. That went to the Board of Aldermen last month, and they did approve it with the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I had one question about the lawn care equipment company or whatever. Do you ever look into if they've abided by all the site plan recommendations that we had? From that, to me, they were supposed to be paving down on the backside, going through behind it too, and they're also still using the front side to have more stacked up on up front side. That's the reason they're building that big panner box or whatever to store their outside equipment behind them and that or whatever. So it doesn't look like they're open for business, but they painted it. They've done all these other things or whatever, the easy stuff. But just if you would just check on that.
I will, and I'm glad you brought that up. We actually talked about that at our department meeting today because, and this petition kind of was a reason why, again, I was kind of looking back at older case files. There have been a lot of site plan reviews for this section of Manchester from Hanley to Brentwood. So in the winter, when things maybe slow down a bit, we would like to go ahead and all those approved site plans, just go do field visits again and make sure that a lot of the things that either were to be approved with site plan development or site development plan approval, or if it was a conditional use permit, to make sure that those things are still, they've been constructed and they've been maintained, so that's a good point.
My reason for voting no tonight, that's had to do with, I want to make sure that staff has the right ammunition to go forward to make sure that's done and that sort of thing. So you can sort it out a little bit more when you have a less formal setting or whatever. We can really get down and figure out exactly what we're going to do and that sort of thing. So, and I know we did that for a long time, but through a lawn care equipment company. And that just seems like it's been a year before it gets done. And there should be a time limit as well. So I don't know if they asked for an occupancy permit for that other building and that sort of thing. So it's like, it doesn't look like they're occupied, but they might be.
Sure, no, that's a good suggestion, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Adjourn. Thank you.